Daddy Played the Blues by Michael Garland, and read to you today by Gammy. I was 6 years old in 1936, the day we left the farm in Mississippi. Between the boll weevils, the floods, and the landlord, there was no way a family could scratch out a living there anymore. Mama cried into her handkerchief and said, "Okay, Cassie, get in the car. It's time to go." Daddy told us there are jobs up north in Chicago, so that's where we're going. Mama, Daddy, my brothers James and Aaron, Uncle Vernon, and I all squeezed into our old car. Everything we owned was squished in a trunk or tied on the roof. I sat in the back seat with the boys. Across our laps was Daddy's most prized possession, a 6-string guitar in a beat-up case. As we drove along, I thought about Daddy and Uncle Vernon and how they always liked to sit on the porch after a long workday and play the blues. Mama said she didn't like the blues because it wasn't church music, but after a while, I would always see her tapping her foot to the music. It took 2 or 3 days to drive from Fayetteville, Mississippi to Chicago, Illinois. We were at the very beginning when Daddy started to hum a tune as he drove. Uncle Vernon took out his harmonica and played softly. Mama sat between them, trying to disapprove, but a little smile crept across the corners of her mouth. I don't remember where we slept or what we ate, but I remember one of the blues songs Daddy sang as the car snaked across the winding road. Going down this road, I'm feeling bad, baby. Going down this road, feeling so miserable and bad, baby. I ain't gonna be treated this way. Blues songs are about sad things, like broken hearts and being far away from home, and about hard things like working long hours and being poor. No matter how sad the song, Daddy always said it made him feel better to sing it. It sure made me feel better to hear it. When we finally arrived in Chicago, we stayed with our cousins until Daddy and Uncle Vernon found work at the stockyards. Then we rented a little apartment on the south side. Even though we were in a new place, some things never changed. As soon as Daddy and Uncle Vernon got home from work, they would sit right down on the front stoop and start playing. In no time at all, they found other musicians to play with. If Daddy and Uncle Vernon weren't playing the blues, they were talking about the blues. They would go on late into the evening talking about W.C. Handy and Blind Lemon Jefferson, or a woman named Bessie Smith. My favorite song was the Catfish Blues. When Daddy played it, Mama would laugh and shake her head. "What if I were a catfish, Mama?" I said, "swimming deep down in deep blue sea. Have these gals now, sweet Mama, setting out hooks for me, setting out hooks for me, for me." Sometimes when Daddy sang the song called "The Little Red Rooster," it made me homesick for the farm. Dogs began to bark now, and the house began to howl. Dogs began to bark now, and the house began to howl. Watch out, stray cat, a little rooster's on the prowl. I wanted to stay up and listen, but Mama always sent me to bed. Sometimes on a night like this, I would fall asleep with the sound of the music in my ears, dreaming about Robert Johnson waiting at the crossroads for the devil to come. I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. I went down to the crossroads and fell down on my knees. Sunday was Daddy's only day off. We all went to church. That pleased Mama, but I knew Daddy couldn't wait to get home and play his guitar all afternoon. Those Sundays were so long ago, but I can still see my daddy strumming and singing with Uncle Vernon and their friends in our little front room. Mama would look at Daddy and laugh. Now, there is one happy man. The end. Author's note. I first became interested in popular music as a child. Among my favorites were the Rolling Stones, the Animals, the Cream, and Van Morrison. Without knowing it, I was introduced to the blues. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards began their friendship as young boys in Dartford, England, when Keith showed Mick a school bag full of blues records. It was the beginning of the Rolling Stones, a name taken from Muddy Waters' song, Rolling Stone. As I came to know more about music, I learned that songs like Love in Vain and Crossroads were not originally compositions by the Rolling Stones and Cream, but had been written long before by American bluesmen Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson. When I finally had an opportunity to hear the original versions of these songs, I realized how much better and more authentic they sounded. It is funny to think that the uniquely American art form of blues music had to be reflected back to America from across the Atlantic Ocean before many Americans had an opportunity to hear it. Once I was old enough to go to concerts, I was able to attend a blues show at Carnegie Hall in New York with two legendary headliners, Muddy Waters and Willie Dixon. In the years since, I've attended many blues concerts, mostly in small venues. I've heard artists like John Lee Hooker, Lightning Hopkins, and B.B. King, three all-time greats performing in the twilights of their career. Blues music evolved in the southern United States when African Americans fused African traditional music with spirituals, work songs, and European and American folk ballads. After that, blues music followed the Great Migration north as many poor African Americans fled the oppression and economy of the South in search for opportunities and employment. These seekers were former slaves or descendants of slaves who were trapped in the sharecropper system, in which tenant farmers paid rent or a portion of their crops to landowners. Families like Cassie's barely got by even in the good years. Jobs in the North paid more and offered relief from the Jim Crow laws of the South, which denied African Americans the right to vote and segregated blacks from whites. The Great Migration lasted for about 1910 to 1970, with a pause during World War II. Although Cassie and her family are fictional characters, great multitudes of real people made the trip from Mississippi to Chicago, Illinois. Others fled Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, and Georgia for cities like New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Detroit. Still, others journeyed west to Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland. Take a second and read the author's notes. We have so much more to learn. Be blessed.